Hello everyone, it is Zistrel here from Team StrictlyBrokenTCG, and I'm here bringing you a deck profile. That's right, it's my turn to make content on this channel. Don't worry, Yellow Card Vanguard's not going anywhere, but I'm here helping out UA make content, especially covering the latest release, which is the BanG Dream title booster. So this is something that I care a lot about, I'm very passionate about, and it's finally come out in English after a long delay. So hopefully here's me sharing with you my deck lists, and hopefully sharing a bit of the passion I have for BanG Dream with you as well. So we're starting off with Roselia, which is, I think, the deck that most people are most excited about. It's the band that is the most popular in BanG Dream. And so I did a lot of testing on it when it came out in Japanese. And I've changed the list since then. Very minor edits, but yeah, I'm going to be showing you the entire deck, give you a profile, kind of explain to you, what the deck's trying to do and how it achieves those pieces. So we'll just jump straight into it. So we'll start off with the starter, nothing special. It's kind of the style you play in everything. We'll start off at the grade 3. So the main key card here is Yukina, the level 3 Yukina. When she attacks, if there's a Roselia music that's been played this turn, she gains 5,000 power until the end of that battle for each grade opponent's Vanguard. So if you're attacking grade 3, she gains 15k, if you're attacking grade 2, she gains 10k, so on and so forth. And her other effect is, if there's been no orders that have been played this turn, you can counterblast 1, and then search your deck or drop zone for a Roselia music and play it into the back row center stage, and then shuffle your deck if you search your deck. So it just guarantees your consistency that you can play a music every single turn once you ride it to grade 3, which is important because the music is what lets us enable our game plan, but we'll get to that in a bit. Next is 4 copies of Sayo, the lead guitarist. Her effects are, if you have Roselia music been played this turn, she gains 5,000 powers, she's a 15k attacker, and at the end of the battle that she attacked the Vanguard, if your Vanguard's a Roselia, she goes into the soul and draws you a card. So this is really useful because it builds you soul, which you need, and it draws you a card which is filtering, which you also need. Next up is 3 copies of the grade 2 Yukina. There are 2 Vanguard effects. The first one is, during your turn, if there's a Roselia music that has been played this turn, she gains 5,000 power, which is not really relevant a lot of the time. You don't really play music on turn 2, only on turn 3. But you play her for the second effect, which is when she's placed on Vanguard Circle, you can soul charge 2, and if a Roselia gets soul charged this way, you can draw a card. So it's basically Yellow Bolt / Demonted Executioner. It's just another plussing on ride, which is great, and it finds you the soul which you need to pull off your combos. Next up is one of the few non-Roselia cards in the deck, which is Tae, the guitarist from Poppin' Party. She's actually really good because even though she's a Poppin' Party character, none of her effects rely on Poppin' Party cards on the board. So her first effect is, when she's placed, you can discard a card to salvage a music from drop zone to hand, which is useful sometimes if you don't have the counter blast to get the music off with Yukina. You can use her instead to discard a card to grab the level 3 music. And then the second effect is, when your Vanguard attacks, this unit and that unit gain 5,000 points at the end of turn. So when your Vanguard attacks, the Vanguard gains 5k and the Tae gains 5k. And this isn't once per turn. And the point of this deck is to restand your Vanguard, and this goes off twice and it stacks. So she starts off as 10, becomes 15 when your Vanguard attacks, becomes 20 when your Vanguard attacks again. And even if your opponent's at grade 3 when Yukina attacks, he starts off being 28 from her own skill, which then becomes 33 from Tae, which then becomes 38 the second time because the 5k is until the end of turn. So this card's really insane. The fact that it's the biggest rearguard you have while also making your Vanguard threatening is the reason we play 4 of it, despite it not being a Roselia. Next up is 4 Lisa. This again is a very useful card. Both of its effects generate soul in some way. So the first one is, when you guard with it or when you intercept with it, basically when it leaves the Guardian Circle, it goes into soul instead. And the second effect is, when it's placed on Rearguard Circle, you can soul charge 1 and give one of your other Roselias 5,000 power. So it's an on-play soul charge, helps Sayo to break numbers, makes your Vanguard a little bit more threatening, and can also intercept from there and then go into soul again. So it's potentially 2 soul, which is really useful to have. Then going on to grade 1s, we have 3 copies of Wrinkle. Wrinkle's first effect is, if you have a unit with Akko in its card name on Vanguard or Rearguard Circle, she becomes 13k. And the other effect is, when she attacks or when she boosts and it hits, you can counterblast 1 to draw a card. This is really good because the deck doesn't really use counterblast beyond the grade 3 Yukina, so this turns those counterblast into draw effects, which you always want to have. Then this drawing is always a good effect. So then next is 4 copies of the Akko. So when she's placed on Rearguard Circle, you can do the top 5 cards of your deck, reveal up to 1 Wrinkle from there, add it to hand, and shuffle. And then the other effect is Rearguard. When she attacks or boosts and it hits, you can soul charge 1. So both of them are boosters and that have on-hit effects, which isn't ideal, but the on-hit effects are pretty useful. You know, Wrinkle converts Counterblast that you're not really using into draws, and Akko gives you soul, which you need to fuel your later stages of the game and your main combo piece. You've noticed that, you know, most of this deck soul charges or filters in some way, and the point is that you just want to get Yukina in play with Tai's, because you can't search for Tai because she's not Roselia, so you need to hard draw into it and just make a big Yukina and restand. But we'll get to the game plan in a second. So, to round off the grade ones, we have 3 copies of Yukina. So her effect is Vanguard Rearguard. When she's placed, you can look at the top 5 cards from your deck, reveal up to 1 grade 2 or higher Roselia from among them, add it to your hand, and then shuffle, and then discard a card. So it's kind of like the grade 3 searches, but it searches for grade 2 and above Roselias. So it's a little bit more flexible. It can add Lisa's, level grade 2 Yukina, Sayos, or the grade 3 Yukina if you so need it. It does discard, so it's not a straight plus like most of the other grade ones in BanG, but it's still useful enough. And the only reason you play 3 instead of 4 is mainly because of space. You want to have space for things like this Tae and the other things that actually generate soul. You don't actually need that much consistency because you have enough filtering and plussing through the rest of your deck. And then for the songs, we've got 2 copies of Firebird, 1 copy of Brave Jewel, and 1 copy of a Black Shout. So this deck doesn't really rely on playing songs before grade 3, at which point once you reach grade 3 you can then just counterblast for Yukina to just search them out, because as we mentioned, this deck doesn't really use counterblast other than this Wrinkle. So you're only playing 1 of these because they're nice to have, but you don't always need them. In particular, Black Shout is a grade 1 song, so you can play it on turn 1, but its only effect is that it draws a card to replace itself, and then it gives 2 of your units 5k, which, if you're going first, that 5k is useless. If you're going second, you can give 5k to your Vanguard to make it a 13k attacker, which is cool, but not exactly game-changing. And if you're committing like super early with like your Akkos and your Wrinkles in the early game, then yes, maybe the 5k there does make a difference if you know you're trying like 10k to guard or something along those lines. But again, it's a card that you don't need to see turn 1 all the time. And if you're generally hitting turn 3, like you're riding to grade 3, then you always want to be searching for Firebird. So you don't really need Black Shout past turn 1 or turn 2. Brave Jewel is a bit more useful. The effect of Brave Jewel is when your Roselia's attack doesn't hit, you can counterblast 1, retire one of your opponent's rear guards, and then draw cards equal to the retired card's grade. So against things like Messiah, you can potentially draw 4 if you retire Volcos. Against any deck that isn't having lots of grade 3 rear guards, you can potentially get a +3. Or you can use it to snipe very pesky things such as intercepts like Dekron and Shadow Paladin, or heal triggers against Beatrice. You only play 1 because it's only needed for those specific situations. The rest of the time, the plussing is nice, but you'd rather have the combo from Firebird, which restands your Vanguard. So the reason we play 2 Firebird is because it's the most important song in the deck. It stands our Vanguard, we're going to be searching for it every turn, so we absolutely do not want to risk damaging it. So having 2 means that we can always have 1 that we can just search from deck or drop zone, and the chance of you damaging both of them by turn 3 is super unlikely. And if you're really that worried about it, you can just guard aggressively anyway, because the deck doesn't need that much counterblast to go off. You can just need 1 or 2 to search for the songs. So the reason we play so much Soul Charge in the deck is because Firebird is Soul Blast 4 and discard a card to restand your Vanguard with -1 drive. So it's, you know, we have a lot of Vanguard restanding effects in Standard already, so this is nothing special, nothing new. The main thing that Roselia brings is a lot of consistency in that it has a lot of Soul Charging, it can search for its song all the time. Your grade 1s, you know, go through the rest of your deck. So you don't have insane amounts of pressure, like you don't have crits like Sanctuary Guard does, and you don't have insane plussing like Claret does, but you have very high Vanguard power consistently, especially with the tie backup, and you can always get there no matter what. And you don't really need that many resources. Like I said, you know, the reason you're playing the tie is because if you don't have Counterblast, you can just discard, salvage the Firebird, replay the Firebird, and all you need is Soul Blast 4, which is really easy to get because the rest of the deck generates Soul. And then for trigger lineup, BanG is quite special. You may notice that the crits and draws in BanG let you play more than 4 copies in the deck. So we're playing 8 crit, 4 draws, and 4 heals. There's not really a lot to say. You know, the 4 draws and heals are kind of self-explanatory. They're your defensive options, they keep you alive. The reason we're just playing 8 crit rather than any vanilla draws is because when you're standing your Vanguard, all the pressure comes from your Vanguard. So having crit in the deck lets you just give a bit more pressure, And it also lets you more reliably go into Force 1, which makes your numbers a bit better, especially on the Tai, because Kai caps out at 20, Sayo caps out at 15 a lot of the time. So you want to be putting Force 1 on your rearguard columns, so that your rearguard columns are equally threatening. You can go for Force 2 on Vanguard, and then, you know, have like 28k twice with 2 damage, getting extra crits to make that threatening, or putting the crits on the rearguard to make them equally threatening is also an option. But I found that because you're not rewriting, you're not generating that many force markers, you can't really rely on the Force 2 to scale effectively, because you're not getting any more Force 2s, you're only going to be using it twice a turn. So the Force 1 at least provides you value when you're like replacing your board with these Tais and Sayos. But this deck can actually go both. Like it's very flexible which force you choose, which I think is one benefit of Roselia, which is why it's one of the better decks. And because you don't have that many moving pieces, like you just need to hit the Yukina, you just need to get the 4 Soul, find the Firebird, and just check some crits. So there's not a lot to say about the deck. You know, if you're interested in like seeing gameplay with it, there's stuff on, I have videos on the Yellow Card Vanguard YouTube channel. In terms of combos, there's not really much combos to do. These search each other out. This enables this with the restand. That's kind of it. You can intercept with Lisa after on-play soul charge to get an extra soul. There's just like these small like tricks and neat things you can do, but nothing really insane. Like the deck synergy isn't that high, but it's still really good. Like it's not tier 1 in the existence of standard, you know, compared to like Gavrel or Gurgit or Overlord or Luard. But it's definitely a really solid deck. Like it functions as it needs to. It's nothing special, but it doesn't need to be anything special. I think that's kind of like why it's one of the better BanG Dream decks, because it's not trying to be something that it's not. So yeah, pretty straightforward. There's not a lot of room for flexibility. Like, you know, the least useful card here is probably the grade 1, the grade 2 Yukinas, but they are really good consistency pieces. Like you're only playing 10 grade 1s, so you could definitely bump up the grade 1 count by cutting some of the grade 2s. There's no problem there. But beyond that, there's not really much room for flexibility. You can't really splash anything else, because everything else requires a Roselia. You know, you don't want to like lose consistency on this, you don't want to lose consistency on this. So that's kind of why, like, you're just playing what you can. There's not a lot of room to experiment in BanG Dream altogether. Like there's not, you can change like the number of songs you're playing, but as we've said, the only song you care about is Firebird to restand your Vanguard. The other two are just like auxiliary nice to haves when they come up. Like you're very rarely going to be searching for these two basically. So yeah, that's basically the deck. The line of play is to just go turn 1, write this, call this, find this. Turn 2, write this, call this, pump it, effect, and then next turn go into this, Firebird, and then just do it again until your opponent dies. So yeah, that's going to be it for now. It's a pretty short deck profile video, but again, there's not really much to talk about with this deck. I might be covering the other bands. You know, if you guys want to see that, let me know in the comments. You know, leave a shout out, leave a like in the video, subscribe to the channel, this one and mine. Tell us what you want to see, obviously you can work on it. But yeah, that's been my guest appearance on the Strictly Broken channel. Here showing off my favorite BanG Dream. Well, not my favorite BanG Dream deck, but my favorite series in BanG Dream. So hopefully you guys enjoyed that. You know, as always, keep up to date, and I'll see you all very soon. Goodbye.